The sky hung low over the kingdom of Aloria, heavy with dark clouds that never seemed to clear. The wind whispered through the broken towers of the old cathedral, carrying with it the scent of iron and oil. In the shadow of the ruins, a lone figure moved carefully, hands blackened with grease, the steady rhythm of hammer and metal breaking the silence. Irian, a human mechanic, worked quietly in his hidden workshop, a place few dared to enter. He was not noble, not magical, not anything the kingdom admired, yet he possessed a rare skill. His hands could mend what others could not. Machines, weapons, even enchanted armor that hummed with magic, they all bent to his will. Tonight he was not fixing ordinary armor. This piece had been sent secretly, its owner unknown, and the faint pulse in its metal made Irian's heart beat faster. The cathedral's massive doors groaned as they slowly opened. A figure stepped inside, tall and imposing. Light glimmered off polished armor, though its edges were jagged and cracked. The sound of each footstep echoed like a drumbeat in the empty hall. "Who dares enter my workshop?" Irian asked, tightening his grip on the hammer. The figure removed the helm, revealing a woman whose presence seemed to command the room. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, met his. There was a strange fire in them, a mixture of anger and something else he could not name. "I need this fixed," she said, her voice calm but edged with authority. "Only a human can do it. This armor has been broken in ways your kind does not understand. Fix it, and you may survive the night." Each plate seemed alive, etched with runes that shimmered faintly. The joints were stiff, almost as if the metal resisted him. A faint hum ran along the seams, a reminder that magic and machine were tangled together, an art he was trained to untangle. As he began work, hammering gently, heating the plates, and adjusting the intricate mechanisms, he felt her gaze upon him. Selene, though he did not know her name yet, watched him not as a knight might watch a subordinate, but as if observing a puzzle she was unwilling to solve herself. "Do not touch the runes too harshly," she said. "They are old and dangerous." Slowly, carefully, he worked, focusing on the rhythms of the armor. Every strike of the hammer was precise, every adjustment measured. Hours passed, yet the room felt suspended in time. Outside, the wind howled and the clouds shifted, but inside, only the sound of metal and breathing existed. He glanced at her once. She had not moved, not even a muscle, yet the faint glow of her eyes betrayed her impatience, or perhaps curiosity. Finally, as the first signs of dawn brushed the horizon, he stepped back. The armor hummed gently, alive but no longer hostile. Irian wiped the sweat from his brow, feeling a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "It is done," he said, his voice trembling slightly. Selene stepped forward, the light catching her eyes, making them gleam like dark jewels. Slowly, she extended her hand, not for him, but toward the armor. As she touched it, the metal seemed to respond, warm and pliable under her fingers. "Only the human mechanic fixed this armor," she whispered, her voice a strange mixture of awe and disbelief. Then slowly she turned her eyes to him. Irian felt his breath catch. Her gaze was heavy, like it carried a secret, a story, a danger he could not yet grasp. For a moment the cathedral seemed smaller, the world shrinking to the space between them. "You understand it," she said softly, "perhaps better than anyone else." Selene smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly, and then turned away. Her armor adjusted itself to her movements as if it had learned to obey her once again. Irian watched, heart thudding, as she raised her helm. "My name is Selene," she said, "and you are now bound to my fate, whether you wish it or not." The words sounded heavy, like chains wrapped around his very soul. "Yes," she replied, voice firm. "The kingdom is broken, my armor is cursed, and the one who repaired it is the one who will decide whether it survives or falls. You will follow me. You will help me. Or you will witness what happens when man and machine fail." The wind tugged at his cloak as if urging him to follow, and against every instinct to remain hidden, he stepped forward. The outside world was not kind. Smoke rose from distant villages, and shadows moved unnaturally among the trees. Magic lingered here, twisted and unpredictable. Selene led him silently through the ruins, her armor gleaming faintly under the gray light. "Where are we going?" Irian finally asked, breaking the tense quiet. "To the citadel," she said. "There you will see the truth of the kingdom and of what you have just repaired." As they approached the citadel, perched on the edge of a cliff overlooking the dark sea, he noticed the broken banners fluttering in the wind. The crest of Aloria, a sun shattered in silver and black, hung limply on the towers. It was a symbol of loss, of forgotten glory, and of battles long past. Selene stopped at the gates. She looked at him again, her gaze sharp, piercing, yet for the first time he sensed a flicker of vulnerability. "Once inside, you must follow my instructions without question," she said. "The knights will not welcome you. They do not trust humans, and the curse it watches, always." He did not know what he had stepped into, but he knew one thing. This was no ordinary repair job. Somehow he was now part of something much larger, something dangerous, and yet impossibly compelling. The gates creaked open, revealing a courtyard where shadows moved like living creatures. He saw figures in dark armor, their faces hidden, their eyes glowing faintly. They stopped and turned as one, observing him silently. Seleni's hand rested on her sword, but her eyes never left him. "You fixed the armor," one knight said, voice cold as ice. "That alone is proof you are not entirely mortal, but will your hand save her or destroy her?" The weight of her gaze was a tether, pulling him toward a fate he could not yet understand. And in that moment, as the wind howled through the courtyard and the first rays of dawn touched the broken stone, he realized that nothing would ever be the same. He had fixed the armor. And in doing so, he had also fixed the path that would bind him to Selene, to the cursed kingdom, and to a destiny that would test every ounce of his courage. The first step into the unknown had begun. And behind Selene's eyes, he could sense it. A storm was coming, one that would change them both forever. The gates of the citadel groaned as they closed behind them, leaving Irian in a courtyard shrouded in shadows. The wind here felt different, heavier somehow, carrying whispers of old magic that made the hairs on his arms rise. Selene led him through the darkened halls, her armor clinking softly with each step. The faint glow from the runes she had worn for centuries lit their path, reflecting in the polished stone walls. "You must understand," she said, her voice low. "This place is not kind to humans. Most who enter never leave." He had worked with cursed armor before, but he had never stepped inside a place so filled with power, secrecy, and danger. Every corridor seemed alive, shadows moving as if they had their own will. "Why me?" he asked finally, breaking the silence. "There are other mechanics. Why would your curse choose a human?" Her eyes, sharp and dark, seemed to pierce right through him. "Because only a human can see what is broken and decide whether it can be mended, not with magic, not with strength, but with understanding." And yet here he was, chosen by a knight no one dared approach. They entered a grand hall, its ceiling impossibly high, draped with torn banners and dust-covered chandeliers. Figures in blackened armor moved like shadows among the columns. Their faces were hidden beneath helmets, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Knights of the Cursed Order," Selene said softly, her voice carrying a strange reverence. "They are bound to this place as I am, and they will test you. Be careful. They do not forgive weakness." They had become something else, a mixture of steel, magic, and loyalty bound to a fate they had not chosen. One of them stepped forward, a massive figure with armor etched in silver runes. "You fixed the armor," the knight said, voice low and echoing, "but that does not prove your worth. Prove it or leave now and never return." He nodded once, stepping forward. "I will do what I can," he said simply. The knight tilted his head, a small sound like a growl escaping beneath the helmet. "We shall see." Each movement he made was studied, watched, measured. The knights did not speak, yet their presence weighed heavily on him. Selene remained near, silent but always observing. Sometimes she would bend slightly, whispering guidance, and each word sent shivers through Irian. Her knowledge of armor, of metal, of magic was immense, yet she let him work, letting him prove himself. "You are careful," she said finally, as he repaired a particularly stubborn joint in one knight's armor. "Most humans would have broken it by now." Then as quickly as it appeared, it was gone, replaced by the sharp, commanding gaze he had first met. "You will need to do more than listen," she said. "The curse watches us. Every repair you make, every touch, it will judge. And if it rejects you—" She did not finish the sentence, but the threat lingered in the air, heavier than the shadows. Irian continued, working carefully, his mind focused not just on the metal, but on Selene. He could not explain why, but the closer he worked to her, the stronger his heartbeat became. There was a tension between them, subtle yet undeniable, like the pull of two magnets, slow and steady, impossible to ignore. As the sun began to set, the citadel took on a different character. Shadows stretched long and dark, and the faint glow of Selene's runes became more pronounced. The knights moved less, their attention sharper, and a strange hum began to fill the hall, vibrating through the stone floors. Irian felt it first in his chest, then in his hands, the metal responding, alive in ways he could barely control. He looked at Selene, who was standing silently, her eyes fixed on the horizon beyond the citadel walls. "The curse grows stronger as night falls," she said. Her voice was almost a whisper, yet it carried authority. "It senses your presence human. It wonders if you are friend or threat." The weight of her words pressed down on him, yet he felt a strange courage rise within. He had repaired her armor once. Perhaps now he could repair what lay beneath it as well, the walls she had built around herself. "Why are you here?" he asked suddenly, unable to stop himself. "Why are you alone in all this?" Then she looked away toward the distant mountains where the sun was setting in blood-orange light. "I am not alone," she said finally. "I have the knights, but the truth is heavier than even they can bear. That is why I need you. You are different. Mortal, yes, but your hands, they can mend more than just metal, perhaps even me." Her words were soft, almost a confession, but they carried weight he could not yet measure. He wanted to ask more, to tell her he was ready to do whatever she needed, yet he did not. There was something sacred about her pain, a space he was not yet allowed to enter. Night fell fully, and the citadel changed. The halls were darker, shadows deeper, and a strange wind whispered through the stone, carrying voices that sounded like echoes of the past. Irian felt a chill run down his spine. Selene led him to a small chamber high in the towers, overlooking the courtyard. She placed a hand on the wall, and the runes on her armor glowed softly, casting gentle light across the room. "You will sleep here tonight," she said. "And tomorrow you will begin the true work. The armor is only the beginning. The curse, it must be understood, or it will destroy us all." He lay down on the simple cot provided, but his mind would not rest. He thought of her words, her eyes, the strange warmth that had passed from the armor to his hands. He could not deny it. Something had shifted between them, a tension that was more than curiosity, more than necessity. Something dangerous, powerful, and impossible to name. Hours passed, and the moon rose high above the citadel, bathing the halls in pale silver light. Irian sat on the edge of the cot, staring at the wall. He knew that tomorrow would bring challenges unlike any he had faced. The curse would test him, Selene would challenge him, and the knights would measure every move. Yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, he felt a strange resolve. He had repaired her armor. Perhaps he could repair what lay beneath it, too. Perhaps he could help her help the knights, and in some small way help the kingdom itself. The night deepened, and the wind whispered through the towers. Outside, shadows moved among the ruins, watching, waiting. Irian closed his eyes, feeling the weight of destiny pressing down, and wondered if he was ready for what was to come. And in the silence, he felt it again, the pull of Selene's gaze, the promise of something greater, something that could either destroy them both or bind them together forever. The citadel was alive with magic, shadows, and secrets. And in the heart of it, a human mechanic had just begun a journey that would change the fate of a kingdom, a knight, and perhaps even himself. The storm was coming. The first light of dawn barely touched the towers of the citadel when Irian awoke. The shadows of the hallways stretched long and dark, but something felt different. He could feel it in the stone beneath his hands, in the air around him. The curse was stirring. He dressed quickly, careful not to make a sound. Outside, the courtyard was quiet, almost unnaturally so. The knights moved silently through the mist, their armor glinting faintly as they passed. Even from a distance, Irian could sense the tension in their posture. Something was coming, and the citadel held its breath in anticipation. Selene appeared at the doorway of his chamber, her armor shining faintly under the gray light. She looked more than ever like a force of nature, beautiful, commanding, and untouchable. Her eyes found his immediately, and for a moment neither spoke. There was a pull between them, a silent recognition that the events of today would change everything. "The curse grows stronger," she said finally. "It is no longer content to wait in silence. It tests me, and now it will test you as well." But this felt different. He could feel the weight of destiny pressing against his chest. Selene led him to the armory, a place filled with rows of cursed armor and weapons, each humming faintly with residual magic. Irian's hands itched to touch them, to understand their mechanisms and restore them, but he hesitated. The hum in the air was almost alive, and he could feel the warning in Selene's eyes. "Listen to it," she said softly. "The curse speaks to those who can hear it. Do not act recklessly." He placed his hands on the cold metal, feeling a pulse beneath his fingers. It was not just a suit of armor. It was a living, breathing part of the curse itself. "You feel it, don't you?" Selene asked, her voice low. "The moment you touch it, it will judge you. If it rejects you, it will consume everything you love." He had felt alive under Selene's gaze before, but now it was different. The metal hummed through him, resonating with his heartbeat. He began to work, carefully adjusting joints, smoothing edges, and whispering to the runes as he worked. Hours passed. The sun rose high, and the citadel seemed to shift around them. Shadows moved unnaturally along the walls, and the faint sound of whispers filled the halls. Irian focused, listening to the subtle hum of the armor, feeling it respond to his hands. He could feel the curse examining him, weighing him, testing his courage, patience, and heart. Selene watched silently, moving closer at times to guide him with a soft word or a glance. Each time their eyes met, something shifted, a tension neither could deny, an unspoken connection that grew stronger with each heartbeat. Irian realized with a strange mix of fear and longing that he had never met anyone like her. Not in skill, not in presence, not in spirit. Suddenly, the air shifted. A ripple of energy passed through the armory, and Irian stumbled back, feeling the metal vibrate under his touch. The cursed armor before him glowed with a fierce light, and a cold wind swept through the room. "The curse is waking," Selene said sharply, drawing her sword. "It does not forgive hesitation. Stand firm, human, or it will devour us both. You have repaired what no one else could. That means something. That means hope." From the shadows, one of the knights moved forward, its armor cracking with dark energy. The runes on its chest glowed like eyes, and it stepped toward Selene, then halted, as if unsure whether to attack or yield. "You see," Selene said quietly, her eyes on Irian. "The curse tests all of us. Even the knights are bound by it. They do not know whether to fight or serve." Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the whispers of the curse and the occasional clink of metal. By evening, the armor Irian had touched glowed gently, as if acknowledging his skill, his care, and perhaps even his heart. Selene approached him slowly, her armor gleaming faintly in the dim light. "You did it," she said softly. "The curse, it respects you. That is rare. You are not just a mechanic, you are more." The shadows in the hallways deepened, moving faster than before. A dark shape emerged, taller and heavier than any knight Irian had seen. Its armor was jagged, black, and pulsing with a strange, living energy. "The curse is not done with us," Selene said, her voice tense. "It will take what it desires, and now it desires you." The shadow advanced, and the hum of the cursed armor rose to a deafening pitch. He looked to Selene, whose eyes burned with determination and worry. She raised her sword, but she did not move forward. Instead, she met his gaze, silently telling him that he could not run. He stepped forward, placing his hands on the nearest armor. The pulse of the metal surged into him, warm and steady, grounding him. He had faced the curse before in the quiet of the workshop, but never like this. This was alive, conscious, and aware of him. And yet he did not feel fear. He felt purpose. With careful hands, he adjusted the runes, whispered to the metal, and moved in rhythm with its pulse. The shadow hesitated, its glowing eyes flickering with uncertainty. Irian felt the connection strengthen, the curse responding to his courage, his touch, his heart. Selene's sword clashed against the shadow's energy as she fought to hold it back. The knights moved around them, their armor glowing softly, watching the interaction with wary respect. Then, with a surge of energy, the shadow recoiled. The runes on Irian's armor glowed bright, and the pulse of the metal hummed like a heartbeat in the quiet night. The shadow shrank back into the darkness, leaving the hall still and quiet. Irian staggered slightly, exhaustion washing over him, but relief followed. He had faced the curse and survived. Selene approached him, her eyes soft now, the tension of hours fading slightly. "You did not just fix the armor," she said. "You faced the curse itself. That is more than I expected." The night settled around them, quiet but not calm. Irian knew this was only the beginning. The curse was awake, the knights were wary, and their journey was far from over. Yet, despite the danger, despite the unknown, he felt a connection to Selene that could not be broken. It was fragile, yes, but it was there. An ember of trust, courage, and perhaps even something deeper, something that could grow into more than either of them expected. The storm was no longer distant. It was here, swirling around them, alive in the shadows and in the hearts of all who dwelled in the citadel. And in that storm, a human mechanic had begun to shape not only metal but destiny itself. Tomorrow, the real challenges would come. The curse would rise again, stronger and more cunning. And Irian and Selene would have to face it together, their bond tested by forces beyond their understanding. The night ended with a quiet promise. The journey was far from over, and the bond between them had only just begun. The storm had not ended. Outside the citadel, the sky roared with thunder, and lightning split the horizon in jagged silver lines. Inside, the halls were alive with the hum of magic and the restless movements of the cursed knights. Irian stood in the grand hall, his hands still tingling from the pulse of the armor he had repaired. The events of the previous days weighed heavily on him. Selene appeared at his side, her armor faintly glowing with runes that had once been dull. She looked stronger, yet there was a weariness in her eyes, a reminder that she had carried the kingdom's burdens far too long alone. "The curse grows restless," she said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of warning. "Tonight it will try to claim what it desires most. We must be ready." The knights followed silently, their eyes glowing softly, watching Irian with cautious respect. He had earned that respect through skill and bravery, but he knew that the curse was far from tamed. As they reached the inner courtyard, the wind rose to a howl. Shadows swirled unnaturally around the broken fountains and shattered stone, forming shapes that twisted and shifted like living creatures. Irian felt the pulse of the cursed metal in his hands, resonating with the shadows. "The curse is awakening," Selene said softly, her hand resting on the hilt of her sword. "It senses your presence, human. It knows that you are not afraid." He had repaired her armor, faced the knights, and even confronted the curse itself. He would not fail now. Suddenly, a shape lunged from the shadows, a massive figure, taller and darker than any knight he had seen. Its armor was jagged, pulsing with dark energy, and the runes etched into it glowed like molten fire. Selene stepped forward, sword raised. "Irian," she said, her eyes locking with his. "Trust your hands, trust your heart." Selene fought beside him, parrying bursts of dark energy, her movements precise and fierce. The knights moved as one with her, their armor glowing faintly as if responding to Irian's touch. Together they formed a circle of power, human, knight, and mechanic bound by courage and purpose. The shadow recoiled, then lunged again, stronger and faster. Irian's hands worked tirelessly, adjusting the armor, moving in rhythm with the pulse of the curse. He realized something profound. The curse was not evil, not truly. It was a force seeking balance, a reflection of pain and fear, and it had been twisted by centuries of neglect and anger. "You see it, don't you?" Selene shouted over the roar of wind and energy. "It is not meant to destroy, but to test. If we fail, it wins. If we understand it, it may release us all." Irian stepped forward, placing both hands firmly on the metal, and whispered, "I am not your enemy. I will help you. I will repair what is broken." Selene lowered her sword, awe and relief in her eyes. "You did it," she said softly. "You faced the curse and it listened." They knelt before Selene and then Irian, a silent acknowledgement of their courage, their skill, and their humanity. Selene turned to him, her eyes softer now, filled with warmth and a hint of something more. "You have changed everything," she whispered. "The curse, it will never be the same again. Neither will I. We have survived the storm, but the kingdom, it is still broken. You and I, we are part of its mending, but that is a journey for tomorrow, for the days to come. Tonight we have one, but only just." The cursed energy that had filled the hallways and shadows now pulsed softly, like a heartbeat in rhythm with theirs. Irian could feel it beneath his hands, a gentle warmth that promised hope and renewal. "I never thought," he said quietly, "that a human like me could matter in a world like this. More than you know, you have hands that can fix what others cannot, yes. But more than that, you have a heart that dares to face the impossible." But more importantly, he had earned the trust and perhaps even the heart of Selene, a bond that felt fragile yet unbreakable. As they walked back through the halls of the citadel, the knights following silently, Irian noticed a subtle change. The runes on their armor no longer glowed with hostility. The shadows no longer moved with threat, but seemed to watch quietly, as if waiting for their new path to unfold. Selene paused at the top of the grand staircase, looking out over the ruined kingdom. "There is still much to do," she said. "The kingdom has suffered for centuries, but perhaps, together, we can begin to heal it." He was part of something greater, part of Selene, part of the kingdom, part of the fate that had chosen him. The first light of dawn touched their faces, and for a moment the world seemed still and beautiful, as if holding its breath. Selene turned her eyes to him, softer now, yet filled with fire. "Only you could have fixed me," she whispered, almost to herself. "And perhaps the world itself." The citadel was quiet now, but the promise of tomorrow lingered in the air. The kingdom was still broken, yes, but hope had returned, fragile, shining, and alive. And in the center of it all stood a human mechanic and a knight, bound by courage, trust, and perhaps even love. The storm had passed, but the journey had just begun. And as the first rays of sunlight fell across the kingdom, Irian knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together. The curse had been tamed, the bond forged, and the kingdom's fate now rested in their hands. Human and knight, machine and magic, heart and courage united at last. The horizon was bright with possibility, and for the first time in centuries, the kingdom of Eloria could dream of a future where shadows no longer ruled, and hope could grow once more.